What if the government could shut down your car whenever they wanted? Not through a police chase, not by shooting out your tires, just remotely, over the air. A kill switch that law enforcement or government officials could activate at will. You've probably seen this claim floating around. Social media posts warning that starting in 2026, the federal government will have the power to disable any new vehicle in America. That they buried this authority in a 2,700-page infrastructure bill, that it is coming, and nobody is talking about it. When I first heard this, I thought it sounded like conspiracy theory stuff. So I decided to actually read the law, Section 24,220 of the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, page 1066. What I found was complicated. The most extreme version of the claim is the idea that some bureaucrat in Washington can press a button and kill your engine from 1,000 miles away. That is not exactly what the law says, but what the law actually does say might be worse, because it creates the architecture for something we have never had before. Mandatory behavioral monitoring in every new vehicle. Technology that can prevent your car from operating based on algorithmic judgment, and zero privacy protections for what happens to that data. So let's break down what is real, what is exaggerated, and what they are definitely not telling you. First, let's address the specific rumor head-on. The claim circulating online is that the US government has, or will soon have, the ability to remotely shut down vehicles over the air, a kill switch that officials could activate at will. Fact checkers have rated this mostly false, and technically they are right. The law does not say the government can remotely disable your car. There is no provision giving the FBI or the DMV or anyone else a big red button to press. Rob Strasburger, president of the Automotive Coalition for Traffic Safety, said there is no automotive technology in existence or in development that could be considered a kill switch, and that nothing in the infrastructure bill gives any law enforcement or third-party access to vehicle information or control of technology installed in vehicles. MADD, a leading supporter of the legislation, affirms no one outside the car will have the ability to operate or disable the vehicle. Johns Hopkins researcher Jeffrey Michael confirmed the legislation does not direct the agency to require a kill switch, a device that allows someone to shut off a vehicle remotely. So case closed, right? The rumor is false? Not so fast. Because here is what the law actually requires. Starting potentially as early as 2026, every new passenger vehicle must be equipped with technology that passively monitors the performance of a driver and can prevent or limit motor vehicle operation if an impairment is detected. Read that again. The car monitors you. The car decides you are impaired. The car prevents operation. The so-called kill switch is not controlled by the government. It is controlled by an algorithm inside your own vehicle. That raises a whole different set of questions that nobody in Congress seemed to ask. To understand why this law exists, we need to start with the problem it claims to solve. Every year, around 12,000 Americans die in alcohol-impaired driving crashes. According to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, that is roughly 30% of all traffic fatalities, one death every 42 minutes, and 25% of children killed in car crashes die because of a drunk driver. Those numbers are real. The human cost is devastating. So when Congress included a provision requiring advanced drunk and impaired driving prevention technology in all new cars, it sounded reasonable, even noble. MADD called it the most significant life-saving legislation in their 41-year history. The Insurance Institute for Highway Safety calculated that preventing the most impaired drivers from operating vehicles could save more than 9,400 lives annually, more than airbags, more than seatbelts. The idea was simple. The DADSES program, the Driver Alcohol Detection System for Safety, had been working on this since 2008, over $70 million spent. They created breath sensors that could detect alcohol in the air you naturally exhale while driving. touch sensors that could read your blood alcohol content through your fingertip when you touch the start button, no blowing into a tube, no waiting, just get in your car and go, unless you have been drinking. Sounds pretty reasonable, right? But here is where things start to fall apart. The first problem is that the law doesn't just target drunk drivers. Read section 24220 carefully. The technology it mandates must passively monitor the performance of a driver and prevent or limit motor vehicle operation if an impairment is detected. Passively monitor. Those two words are doing a lot of heavy lifting. According to NHTSA's interpretation, passively means the system functions without direct action from vehicle occupants. You don't consent to being monitored. You don't opt in. It just happens. And the law doesn't limit monitoring to alcohol. It says impairment. Impairment is a much broader category. The ACLU senior policy analyst Jay Stanley warned that this provision gives the Department of Transportation so much latitude it could result in a privacy disaster. He compared it to Amazon's machine vision monitoring of delivery drivers. The Surveillance Technology Oversight Project's Albert Fox Kahn went further, calling passive impairment detection systems invasive, biased, and ultimately unconstitutional. He raised a question that nobody in Congress seemed to ask. What happens when the AI mischaracterizes a driver with a disability as impaired? But the real issue isn't what the technology can detect, it's what happens to that data. Here's what blew my mind when I started digging into this. Section 24220 is completely silent on data retention. It says nothing about who can access your driving data. There are zero privacy protections written into the law. All of that gets left to NHTSA's rulemaking process, which, by the way, still hasn't happened. The November 2024 deadline for a final rule was missed. NHTSA published an advance notice of proposed rulemaking in January 2024, received over 18,000 public comments, and then nothing. So we have a law on the books mandating surveillance technology in every new car with no privacy framework, no final rules, and a missed deadline. But wait, it gets worse. Your car is already spying on you. In September 2023, Mozilla released their Privacy Not Included report on car manufacturers. They reviewed 25 major car brands. Every single one failed. Mozilla called cars the official worst category of products for privacy that we have ever reviewed. Worse than smart speakers, worse than fitness trackers, worse than anything. Here is what they found. Modern cars can generate approximately 25 gigabytes of data per hour. That includes your precise GPS location, sometimes logged every 3 seconds. It includes your synced phone contacts, your voice recordings from in-car systems, and more. In some cases, manufacturers claim the right to collect information about your sexual activity, immigration status, race, facial expressions, weight, health, and genetic information. 84% of the brands Mozilla reviewed share or sell consumer data. 56% say they will hand information to law enforcement upon a mere request, not a warrant, just a request. In January 2026, General Motors settled with the Federal Trade Commission after the agency found that its OnStar system had been collecting precise location and driving behavior data from customers. We are talking about hard braking, speeding, and late-night driving patterns. They collected that data as frequently as every 3 seconds. Then they sold it to consumer reporting agencies like LexisNexis and Verisk. Those agencies then sold it to insurance companies. So people's insurance rates went up or their coverage got denied based on driving data they did not even know was being collected. All of this was hidden behind a feature called Smart Driver that most customers thought was just about getting driving tips. A 2024 Senate investigation by Senators Wyden and Markey found that Toyota, Nissan, Subaru, Volkswagen, BMW, Mazda, Mercedes-Benz, and Kia all admitted they would share location data with police upon subpoena, not a warrant signed by a judge. A subpoena does not require judicial approval. So here is the picture. Your car is already a surveillance device. Manufacturers are already selling your data. Law enforcement is already accessing it without warrants. And now the government wants to mandate even more invasive monitoring technology in every vehicle? This brings us to what happened in Congress. On January 22, 2026, Representative Thomas Massie of Kentucky introduced an amendment to the Consolidated Appropriations Act. His amendment would have blocked federal spending on implementing Section 24220. He called the mandate the looming Orwellian automobile kill switch. During the floor debate, Massey asked pointed questions. Who gets access to the camera footage? Can insurance companies use impairment data? Does this comply with the Fourth Amendment? He did not get answers. The amendment was defeated, 164 to 268. But here is the part that shocked a lot of people. 57 Republicans voted with 211 Democrats to kill Massey's amendment and preserve the mandate. Governor Ron DeSantis called it something you would expect in Orwell's 1984. Representative Tim Burchett accused his colleagues of being gutless and compromised. This was not the first attempt to repeal Section 24220. Senator Mike Rounds introduced the Safeguarding Privacy in Your Car Act in 2022. It died in committee. Representative Scott Perry introduced the No Kill Switches in Cars Act in 2023 and again in 2025. Those bills are still pending. The mandate keeps surviving. Defenders of the law will tell you that kill switch is a misleading term. Fact checkers have rated the phrase mostly false. And technically, they are right about one thing. The law does not create a remote kill switch that the government can use to disable your car from a distance. But here is what it does create. Every new car will contain technology that monitors your behavior and can disable vehicle operation based on algorithmic judgment. No human review, no due process, no clearly defined data protections. Whether you call that a kill switch or a safety system, the functional architecture is the same. And once that architecture exists in hundreds of millions of vehicles, the question is not whether it will stay confined to its original purpose. The question is when it will not. Here is something that should make you uncomfortable. NHTSAs. December 2024 report to Congress admitted that systems specifically targeting passive and accurate alcohol impairment detection and prevention are still primarily in the research stage. The agency assessed 331 commercially available technologies. Every single one failed to measure alcohol impairment as required by the statute. The agency acknowledged difficulties parsing out drunk driving from drowsy or distracted behavior. They raised concerns about false positives and the safety implications of stopping a vehicle in traffic. So Congress mandated technology that does not yet exist, set a deadline that is already missed, and created no framework for what happens when the technology inevitably makes mistakes. Speaking of mistakes, the DADSS program has been testing their breath sensors in controlled environments. They achieved 91.6% sensitivity and 99.93% specificity. That sounds impressive until you do the math. With over 230 million licensed drivers in America, even a 0.5% false positive rate per drive means millions of legitimate trips getting blocked every year. And that is in controlled testing. Real-world conditions are messier. During fleet testing, they discovered that certain vape cartridges can trigger false positives. So can monk fruit sweeteners, alcohol-based mouthwash, fermented foods, cough syrup. Imagine you are driving to the hospital because your kid is sick. You used mouthwash that morning. Your car decides you are impaired and will not start. Who do you appeal to? The Competitive Enterprise Institute's Clyde Wayne Cruz raised a concern that I think everyone should take seriously. He warned that if the drunk driving kill switch for cars survives, plenty more is on tap. The same Internet of Things, allowing agencies to monitor drivers, can also enable instantaneous nanny state regulation from a distance. This is not paranoid speculation, it is pattern recognition. Remember when toll transponders were just about paying tolls? Now they are used in divorce cases to prove where spouses were driving. Remember when license plate readers were just for finding stolen cars? Now they are building databases of everyone's movements. The California Privacy Protection Agency described modern cars as connected computers on wheels. Once the behavioral monitoring infrastructure exists, the use cases will expand. Insurance companies are already interested. That GM settlement proved they will pay for driving behavior data. Imagine what they would pay for real-time impairment monitoring. Employers with company fleets, rental car companies, parents of teenage drivers, divorce attorneys. There is an entire ecosystem of people who would love access to this data, and the law provides no guardrails. In 2010, a disgruntled former employee of Texas Auto Center accessed a web-based vehicle immobilization system and remotely disabled over 100 customers' vehicles. He also triggered their horns repeatedly in the middle of the night. That system was designed for legitimate purposes. Subprime auto lenders use it to disable vehicles when payments are missed. But once the capability exists, it can be abused. In domestic violence cases, connected vehicle technology has become a weapon. A San Francisco woman sued Tesla after her husband allegedly used the Tesla app to remotely open and close doors, turn on the heat, and disable charging, even after she obtained a restraining order. Between 2019 and 2022, Tesla employees were caught internally sharing intimate camera footage captured from customers' vehicles. Every new capability creates new vulnerabilities. So what happens now? The mandate is still law. Multiple repeal attempts have failed. The January 2026 House vote showed bipartisan support for keeping it in place. But the rulemaking is stalled. NHTSA has lost approximately 25% of its staff under the current administration. No final rule exists. The technology is not ready for deployment. The realistic timeline for cars equipped with DADSS-style alcohol detection is 2027 or 2028 at the earliest. Maybe later. Camera-based systems from companies like Seeing Machines and Smart Eye could potentially deploy sooner. They claim their driver monitoring cameras can detect alcohol impairment through behavioral cues, but NHTSA has not validated those claims for regulatory purposes. The Insurance Institute for Highway Safety announced they will incorporate impaired driving prevention technology into their influential vehicle safety ratings. If you want the top safety rating, you will need this technology. That creates market pressure independent of any federal mandate. Some states are moving on their own. The EU is taking a different approach entirely. They are only requiring a standardized interface for aftermarket alcohol interlock installation, way less invasive than universal passive detection in every vehicle. The US, by contrast, is committed to a much more ambitious experiment. Here is what is really at stake. The debate over Section 24220 is not actually about drunk driving. Everyone agrees drunk driving is bad. 12,000 deaths a year is a tragedy. The debate is about what kind of infrastructure we are willing to build into the fabric of American life. Do we want every vehicle to contain technology capable of monitoring driver behavior and disabling operation based on algorithmic judgment? With no human review, no due process, and no clearly defined data protections. Because once that infrastructure exists, we cannot unbuild it. And the people who control it will not always be the people who built it. So let us come back to where we started. Is the rumor true? Can the government remotely shut down your car with a kill switch? The literal answer is no. There is no remote government kill switch in this law, but that answer is technically correct while missing the point entirely. The law creates mandatory behavioral monitoring in every new vehicle. It creates technology that can disable your car based on algorithmic judgment. It creates a data collection infrastructure with zero privacy protections. And once that architecture exists in hundreds of millions of vehicles, the question is not whether it stays confined to drunk driving prevention. The question is, who gets to decide what counts as impairment? Who gets access to the data? And what happens when the definition expands? Representative Harriet Hageman from Wyoming asked during the debate a question that nobody answered. She asked how the technology, in cases not involving the use of a blood alcohol concentration, determines if the driver is impaired. Could disabling vehicle operation cause a driver and their occupants to be stranded and placed in an even more dangerous situation? What happens when your car shuts down on a highway at night? What happens when a single Mother S car will not start because the AI thinks she is tired? What happens when the data gets hacked, or sold, or subpoenaed? The law has no answers. The government cannot remotely disable your car today, but they just mandated that every new car must be able to disable itself. And if you think the distinction between those two things will matter in 10 years, I have got a bridge to sell you. If you want to understand how we got to a point where your car can decide whether you are allowed to drive, there is a deeper story here about surveillance technology and how it always expands beyond its original purpose. If you found this useful, please like and subscribe. This stuff is moving fast. See you in the next one.